Hey guys, we're back to talk about one of our favorite events of the year, Universal Studios Hollywood Halloween Horror Nights. And so we're going to come back and revisit the visual guide that we do every year, kind of a visual strategy guide, walk our way through the park. Obviously, it's a different year with Potter open. We'll talk about some of the changes from 2015, but really trying to do very similar to what we did in our guide in 2014 and 2015, if you followed along with us in the past, which is just put together a good strategy to help people make the most of the event. For us, if this is the first time tuning into any of our work, we're really all about trying to maximize the fan experience, and to us, really, time spent in line is not super enjoyable, and so trying to make the most of a night. And the night at Horror Nights is not a cheap event by any means, and so we want to make sure to really try and find a way to maximize that fun. Now, one thing about the guide, just as in the past years, by no means is this guide meant to be a replacement for front of the line. At the end of the day, if you can afford front of the line and you're going to do that every time, whether it's one visit to the park or multiple times, then that's great. Go for it. This is just meant to really help those that aren't going to have that front of the line or some other sort of advantage there. We will go and we'll be there on media night and we'll have front of the line, and that'll be a very different experience than if we come back a couple weeks later and want to enjoy it again without front of the line. And so we do like to kind of focus in on that. We do the same thing for Not Scary Farm, and we do it for San Diego Comic-Con and places like that as well. Some of those, really packed events that need a little bit of strategy to make the most of things. And so, again, not a replacement front of the line if you can do that, but we look at it this way. If the front of the line cost is going to cost us an experience, being able to do some other haunts. Last year, I think we visited 29 different haunts in Southern California, and so we don't want to cost any of those by paying a bunch of extra money for front of the line at any of the events, because most of the big ones do have some sort of front of the line, and really most of the small ones do as well. So as we're looking at this, one thing to note right off the bat is there are going to be a few rides that are open, but we're not going to really include those in our strategy. So Jurassic Park in the dark down at the lower lot will be open, Transformers as well, and Mummy all down there, and then up in the upper lot, Simpsons will be open. Those are not included in this strategy guide. Love them, they're fun, whatever, per daytime. And we'll talk a little bit more about utilizing maybe that day-night combo ticket in a minute, but this guide does not include that. This is all about participating really in all of the Halloween-specific activities that are just for horror nights. The other thing about that is they say it right on the website. The first 4 nights are the least crowded, and as we all know, with anything Halloween related, it just gets more crowded as you get closer to Halloween, in particular on those Fridays and Saturdays. So, going the Friday and Saturday before Halloween is absolute chaos. Definitely, if there's one time you don't want to be at Horror Nights, it's that preceding Friday and Saturday. So try to be thoughtful in terms of picking your dates. The earlier you get out there, the longer you can stretch the Halloween season. And if you're the type of person that's watching a visual strategy guide like this, I'm guessing you love Halloween and you're going to get several events in. So you might want to think about that and kind of hitting those first 4 nights that they're open. And we went the week after, and again, they're going to be open. That's Friday and Saturday after Halloween this year. Halloween falls on a Monday. But Friday and Saturday, they'll be open, and it was really dead on that Friday. Not sure if it'll change this year with more time to market it, but that might be a good time to kind of lengthen the Halloween season in a different way as well. Also, make sure to get your tickets online ahead of time. Frequent Fear is a really good value. I mean, it's an exceptional value, but obviously it's going to be mostly Thursdays and Sundays, so just be aware of that as you're looking at those various options there. The day and night combo ticket, I think, is really great as well, because it allows you to get some of those rides. And if you do want to hit a Transformers or Wizarding World of Harry Potter, it's a big deal for a lot of people in Southern California. It will not be open during Horror Nights, and so that is your one chance to be able to get in there. If you're trying to kind of make it your one visit of the year, you need something like the day-night combo ticket. In addition to the rides and kind of access to Potter, The Walking Dead is accessible, and Walking Dead is accessible every day right now. And so that's something for us that's going to have a very low priority on any Halloween Horror Nights that were there. It's not going to really rank as even a priority at all, unless something significantly changes and there's, all these extra actors or all these extra little stunts that they're going to include. But for the most part, we're going to figure that it's going to be about what the experience is in the daytime there. And so if that's the case, we're definitely not going to sit in those lines. And I think a lot of people will. Walking Dead is a huge property for Universal Studios. It's going to be very crowded there for the average attendee, and something that we're not going to place a great emphasis on in this guide, although we will talk about where we would fit it if you wanted to get in there. And the last thing about the day-night combo ticket is you do have early access then to the park, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So all those advantages ahead of time are good things. Do make sure also, before we get into kind of the meat and potatoes of actually navigating the park and security and things like that, do make sure that you are using social media. Follow at Horror Nights, John Murdy, creative director. runs the account. They do lots of fun things in terms of behind the scenes of the mazes that they're coming together, but also fun things like the giveaways. And so last year for This Is the End, there was the You Were Invited to James Franco flyer, and that was something that was put up on Twitter, and they'd give you kind of a general, a password to use, and you keep a general eye out for these people, and you can get these fun little souvenirs. And so they'll be doing that again this year. So there's also little strategies that he'll include there sometimes. And again, the behind the scenes is the best part of that Twitter account, so definitely suggest that. All right, so let's go ahead and talk really now before we are entering the park even and talking a little bit about security and that setup. So first off in that, everything that this guide is going to be predicated on is getting there early and trying to maximize the amount of things that you get done before it all gets gummed up with the huge crowds. And so Horror Nights and Scary Farm and Dark Harbor at Fright Fest, all of these people show up pretty late sometimes. And so getting there the earlier the better, so you have every bit of an advantage there. I would suggest, if at all possible, getting there by 3 or 4, not to get in line or anything like that, but just to have dinner and City Walk. Get there, get your car parked. I mean, if you're doing the day-night combo, that would be a given that you'd already be there for access around 2. But otherwise, you can get there, not have to worry about the same sort of crowds for parking, grab a bite somewhere in the City Walk area, and then make your way over to security and start navigating all of that. Now, there is very strict security with most Halloween events, and Horror Nights is no exception. And so as you're making your way through, expect metal detectors, expect, there's no food or drink allowed in. They'll be very, very thorough investigating. And not that that's a problem that you're going to bring anything that shouldn't be in there, but sometimes people gloss over the security measures. But the real important part about that is that just means that line is going to be seriously backed up. Now, Universal does a really good job of getting all hands on deck. Even on the slower nights, they've done a really good job of processing people and getting them in. But again, the longer you wait to get in that first security line, the longer the line will be, the more it's going to delay every part. And it has this kind of trickle-down effect. And so the sooner that you're able to get beyond security, get inside those security gates there, the better off for being able to enjoy the event. Now, they have said that there will be some early access. They suggest on the Horror Nights website, they suggest arriving by 6, and that select mazes and Terror Tram will open at 6:30. Now, over the last couple years, what's happened is once you made your way through security, you have the choices. You could go over here and get in line to come down the main alleyway there at the entrance, or they open the side gate here and you could make your way up over by Waterworld. Now, by making your way this way, it kind of cuts out your ability to check out most of the opening ceremony. Usually it kind of feeds you past that. And that'll be kind of a philosophical choice there. If you're only going one night or a couple nights, if you can avoid the opening ceremony, definitely suggest that, because so much of the strategy is going to be based, again, on avoiding the crowds. And this is going to be so insanely crowded with everybody checking out those first scare actors and the opening ceremony. I mean, really what we're going to be talking about is getting down here and getting to the lower lot and the Metro lot as soon as possible. So by being there early, again, getting inside. One thing that's interesting this year is there's not going to be in that Universal Plaza, like over there by Mel's, where they had Halloween last year, or Dracula Untold the year before. This year, the maze up on top is going to be in the Waterworld queue. So curious to see if they're going to still utilize this space and how that's going to work. Will that be something that's even accessible earlier on? We're not sure. Follow along with us on social media, and we'll do a bunch of kind of tips and kind of after the video's done at the close of this video about suggestions, but we'll see how that works. But for the most part, once we get in, there's going to be the Purge actors. If you've not heard, I'm sure you have if you're watching a video like this, but there's really only one kind of maximum all-out ultra kind of scare zone this year, and that is Purge. So everything that's going to have any scare zone to it is going to be Purge. If you've not been to Horror Nights before, one of the things that's kind of unique about it versus something like, let's say, a Dark Harbor or a Scary Farm is there really isn't much blending of scare zones normally. So for example, last year you had Dark Christmas over here, and then Corpses over here, and then Exterminators here, and then you had these soft spots in between where there was just no scare actors at all. As you make your way to Springfield in particular, there's no scare actors. A lot of places, if you're with somebody that's maybe has a little bit more trepidation about the whole scare actor thing, you can always find a lot of easy places to hide away from those scare actors. But this year with Purge, it'd be interesting to see if they make more use of space, or if it's still just going to be, we know there's going to be like this gauntlet that takes place over here that goes through the Parisian courtyard area. how exactly that looks and how much purge kind of makes its way into other parts of the park remains to be seen. I don't think it's going to be just this one spot here, but we'll see as time goes on. Obviously, opening night, that's part of the excitement of opening night, is to see how these things actually reveal themselves. All right. So whether we're going to do the opening ceremony or hopefully we're going to skip that opening ceremony, the goal really is to make our way past Potter, past Springfield, and down those escalators to get to the lower lot. And so as we make our way to the lower lot, the highlights down there and the two things that are really going to draw our attention, I mean, there are going to be some rides open, but what we really want to hit is Exorcist over here, where this is the end was last year in the Mummy queue area there. And then over on the other side there where we had Insidious before in the Jurassic Park queue, you have Halloween. And so those are going to be really popular. I wouldn't be surprised if those two end up being the most popular mazes of the year. And so whereas last time we were kind of pushing more to get to Metro Lot first in 2015, and that worked well for us, this year that's where we're going to start. Our first maze is going to be Exorcist and Halloween, in whichever order you want to jump those. It makes the most sense to us actually to go to Halloween first, hit Exorcist, and then boom, making the walk. And do beware, this year there is no tram out, at least as of this recording, I should say. We're like, whatever, 3 weeks out from the night. There is no tram that's going to take you out to the Metro Lot. So it's going to be a big night of walking. And so it goes without saying to, wear good shoes and be ready to move through these haunts. But starting out, again, Halloween, Exorcist, and then making that long trek and walking as fast as we can. And right there, I mean, that's really where, front of the line is such a nice advantage, is if we're able to make our way, and not have to worry about hustling so much, not have to worry about eating before the haunt, not having to worry about all those little extra things to kind of meander. I mean, front of the line really buys you, peace of mind and some relaxation. But again, that said, you can have a really great time. We tested out our guide last year, and we were done with pretty much everything, I think, by like 10:30 or 11 on the week after, 2 weeks after, whatever it was, a Friday or Saturday. I mean, it was a busy night, but you're able to do it. You don't have to buy that front of the line, but it does buy a little bit of rest and relaxation mixed in. But for now, at least in that first part, it's all about hustle. And so we're hustling to get in through security. We're hustling our way down the escalator, hustling over to Halloween and Exorcist, and then we're going to make our way down the Metro Lot there. We're going to hit Krampus, Freddy v. Jason, and American Horror Story. And hitting all three of those out there is going to be really important because, again, generally the masses, the people that aren't going to watch strategy guides like this, they just kind of are going to meander, and they're going to take their time, and they're going to get there late, and they're going to slowly trickle their way down there so that by the end of the night, this is all going to be the messiest area, and this is going to get kind of cleaned up here. And so our goal is to be obviously opposite of the crowds. And so once we come down this way, make our way out to the Metro Lot there, hit those mazes, make our way back, and now we've kind of got that long walk because we're going all the way from the Metro Lots to Transformers up, all the way up the escalators, and now we are making our way up here, and hopefully we are up here by around 8 o'clock. And so at that point now, it does become a bit of a waiting game, and this is where things can be a little bit more relaxing, because as of here, we've still got Terror Tram to do. We've got, if we want to do The Walking Dead, we've got Texas Chainsaw Massacre over here in the Waterworld queue, and then we have hitting that Purge Scare Zone again. And so those are all things. Oh, and the Jabberwockies, obviously in the special effects stage if we want to hit that show. So these are all things that we can kind of wait on a little bit and play them by ear. Once we hit the top lot again here, we kind of keep an eye on everything, seeing what it is. Our hope would be to get on Terror Tram at this point, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're too early for that, and these groups have just made their way there. So we might want to jump into line over for the Jabberwockies. Guessing Texas Chainsaw is going to be messy then, but again, kind of waiting things out and seeing Walking Dead if we're going to include that. But wouldn't be surprised at all if really this is where we grab a snack or a break over here in Springfield maybe to wait out there. Check, see one of the performances of the Jabberwockies and really kind of wait things out a little bit there. Now, do be aware with Terror Tram, on Thursdays and Sundays, it closes at 11:15, and on the Fridays and Saturdays, it closes at 11:45. So it does close earlier than the rest of the park, and so even though you have till 2 a.m., don't make the mistake of saving that to the very end, because that will cost you. With the Terror Tram, once you take that tram out there and you get to check out the fun clown action there that Eli Roth's putting together, that's that's an area too where you can really take your time. We always take a really long, slow time once we're off the Terror Tram and into walking around those back lots, because it's just fun to appreciate what they've put together for Horror Nights, but it's also fun to appreciate just the history of the backlot area. And so even if they didn't put anything out there and they made it an event in February to walk around the backlot, to me that would be an event that I'd want to take part in, just because it's neat to see the film sets up close. But when you add scare actors and all the stuff that you have there, it'll be even more fun. But do watch that. So hopefully we'd be able to make Terror Tram up next. If not, we could save that to that 11-ish area, just as long as we're in there before they lock up those gates. And then again, Texas Chainsaw Massacre really is our priority on the upper lot for us specifically. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Terror Tram, those are really the only two things we care about, to be honest. Jabberwockies is not a big deal to us. If we hit it, we hit it. If not, I think we would hit it just as kind of a thing to break. They only have one show at Horror Nights. Hoping it's a little more Halloween themed this year than it was last year, but either way, we'll probably fit that in there. The Purge Scare Zone, definitely, I don't even include that when talking about hitting these two things, because that's just going to be so easy. It's just going to be this big scare zone. Scare zones, we sat several hours over the course of the visits we made to Horror Nights last year, just kind of hanging out in their scare zones. In particular, Dark Christmas we really loved. Hoping Purge puts on a good show. I'm sure they will. The scare zones are always great because they're high capacity and that you're not waiting in a line. And we'll see if it's a little bit different with the whole gauntlet experience and how that works. But I've got to imagine there's going to be just scare actors roaming about out here that'll make it fun, even if it's not making our way specifically through the Parisian courtyard. And as I said, for Walking Dead for us, that's just not really going to rank as a priority unless, again, opening night comes and there's something really different about that. But that's where we would say, hey, get there in the daytime if you can. If you are coming and this is your one trip for the year and you definitely want to hit Walking Dead, then, you can rethink that strategy of where that goes, and that might become a priority over Terror Tram. And again, what's nice up here is it's all in such close proximity. You're really able to keep an eye on lines between Texas Chainsaw, Walking Dead, and Terror Tram. It's not going to be too hard to check out times. You can always check on the app as well for wait times. We don't find that the app, on the website, we don't find that it's always 100% correct, but it's usually in the ballpark, and that'll give you a sense of where you're at with those things as well. So as we're looking, we are the type of people that are really going to want to max out the night and leave pretty much in that last group. Remember that there is Chainsaw Chase out there, and so there's kind of a fun performance by the scare actors there. I don't think that'll be different this year. Tons of them out there kind of chasing you out the doors, and that's always a fun thing to see. We really want to maximize that 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. And as I said, with early access, getting there even earlier to kind of make it a full night. So even though the first part's going to be a lot of hustle to get to everything fast, from that 8 or 9 o'clock on, it's going to be a lot of relaxation, kind of just taking things in. And obviously, there's always the option as we're watching wait times, and if we're there on a lighter night, of making our way back over here. Because for most people, they're going to come in and they're going to hit these things, and they're going to make their way down, and they're going to hit these things, and they're going to make their way here, and they're going to hit these things. And then they're going to exit the park, whatever time that may be. They're maybe going to get frustrated by 2-hour lines or whatever it may be, and maybe not do everything. And so you can kind of wait and, keeping an eye on social media, keeping an eye on the wait times on the Universal website, all of those things can really help to maximize your fun and fill the night with lots of entertaining features to it. So, all right, so at this point, I think we'll wrap up this look at the guide. Hopefully the on-course footage, looking at this, has all helped to give you a little bit of an idea of planning your night. Please do let us know if you find other strategies or if you have other strategies to include. We always like to update them. You can leave them in the comment section there to help other people kind of have the best night possible there. As I said, we'll update things live on opening night. We'll be there September 16th, so we'll be putting all sorts of updates up that night. You can follow along with us there. We'll have more conversation about it over on our podcast. If you head over to iTunes and Stitcher, you could check out our Horror Nights podcast from last year, in 2015 and 2014 for that matter, but also this year we'll have a podcast up probably within a couple days of the event, kind of talking about what we learned, what we liked, and maybe any suggestions or strategies we find there. We'll obviously do several YouTube videos throughout the night and throughout the run of Horror Nights, and we'll also probably do some periscoping as long as we can get a decent signal there. And so we'll try to provide as much information as possible, and not just what's fun in terms of the creative elements of the show, but also just pure, strategies, because our philosophy, again, is no matter how amazing a maze is and how fun a maze is, if you can't get in there because it's an hour, 2-hour wait, and maybe you just can't stand that long, or it's just going to rob so much time from other things that kind of can kill the event for you. So we want to make sure to share that information so that you go into it as smart as possible and able to enjoy it as much as possible. So have an awesome Halloween season. We'll have tons of content through it. So if you're a Halloween fan, follow along with us. And we'll wrap up there. And until next time, we'll see you in line at Horror Nights.